Hello everyone, James here, talking about a fresh new academic year in terms of 11 plus tuition, not just for my own tutees, but also for anyone out there on YouTube that's interested in this. So what I'm going to talk about, I'm going to start with Year 5 first, because they're the people that have got an exam 1 year away. I want to talk about how progress works. I've talked about this before. I've spoken about this before, but I think I want to break it down into phases. So the groundwork phase here probably lasts the longest and probably lasts longer than most parents would possibly feel comfortable with, but it's utterly essential, okay? When we're talking about maths, we're talking about all the core operations, the core skills, the toolkit that children need to then go on and apply. There is no point pushing on to lots of 11 plus style questions if the child hasn't got the basics first. And I'll come on to this later. You can actually have the reverse effect if you try and hammer too hard on that kind of thing too early. But this groundwork phase, you know, it will go on beyond Christmas. You know, it lasts a long time, and we must remain patient, okay? Because learning is not a linear thing. Learning's not linear. Learning, I've spoken about this before in a previous YouTube video. Learning typically follows this kind of pattern, okay? You know, and most of the progress will be made quite late on. As parents, we expect it to be like this, okay? And learning is just not like that, I'm afraid. And this acceleration phase definitely relies on this being done properly, okay? If you've got this right, everything else follows on quite nicely. And then when we do finally get to application, we start building in topic teaching. You know, we start focusing on applying, you know, maybe things like multiplying decimals and unit conversions and that kind of thing, to things like calculating area of floor plans and that kind of thing, you know. So we can't do that till we've got this in place. And then once we've gone through a sufficient number of topics in the application phase, we can start then switching quite late on into actual practice papers. But that, you know, the practice paper phase will come quite late on. It's up to you what you do, but this has always been my approach, and it seems to work, okay? And then really late on, I'm talking about the summer before the exam. I'm talking about July onwards before the exam. The exam's normally in September. Then we switch to formal mock exams, and we run them here in Chelmsford. You may choose to go somewhere else. You know, that's good. So it brings me on to my second point, which is the sprint approach, which is the push as fast as you can through material. What you'll find is you'll push your kid into material which is actually beyond their skill set. You'll start pushing them into a zone where they haven't got the skill set to actually attack those types of questions. You just keep pushing them. And if you sprint too fast, they'll forget the things back here. And I see this. I get kids who are really young and reckon they've got onto book 3 or whatever. You go back and test them on book 1, they've forgotten it. Okay, so it's better to have a really solid foundation, because if there is a time to sprint, and that's in the summer before, but if you sprint too early, I'm not talking about amount of work. It's good to do lots of homework. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about pushing through many books, you know, too early can actually, not always, but in the main, have a detrimental effect and can actually lower kids' self-esteem and make them feel they're just not capable of doing the 11 plus, which is, you know, may well not be the case. With Year 4, you know, this is 11 plus tuition, but we're just looking at groundwork, okay? And the good thing about Year 4, if you start early, is if there are gaps due to COVID, homeschooling, if there are differences between provision in schools, and there is, I'm afraid,
then this can really help set a very, very solid foundation, so that when they come to year 5, they're much more well equipped. I hope you found this interesting. I've given it a pause over the summer with my channel. I plan to start pumping out these videos once a week again. I hope you click on subscribe, give it a thumbs up. Look forward to seeing you next time. Thank you. Goodbye.